Sometimes I really wonder if I was meant to find that place. Or if, that place actually found me. It's funny, really, the way life can just pivot on a single, seemingly insignificant decision. One moment, you're just, a curious history buff, a ghost story enthusiast, maybe looking for a little thrill, a bit of an adrenaline rush. And then the next you're something entirely different. Something broken, honestly. What happened in Villisca, Iowa, that night, it changed me in a way I still can't fully articulate. It carved itself into my bones, into my very being. And even now, years later, when the house is quiet and the wind howls just right outside my window, I can still hear them. Not with my ears, not exactly. But in that deep, dark part of my mind, the part that remembers things, it desperately wishes it could forget. Yeah, I can still hear the whispers, the children. And sometimes, that's the worst part. So my name's Alex. Or it was Alex. I used to be a pretty ordinary guy, honestly. I worked this kind of boring desk job, nothing exciting. And I'd spend my weekends binging true crime documentaries and reading up on local legends, My biggest thrill back then was finding some new cold case podcast to obsess over. I was just fascinated by the unexplained, the macabre, but always from a safe distance. Always through a screen or a book. It was my hobby, I guess. My safe obsession. That fascination, eventually, it led me to the Villisca Axe Murder House. If you're, even remotely into the paranormal or true crime, you've probably heard of it. It's this incredibly unassuming, 2-story white house in this tiny, tiny Iowa town. From the outside, it looks completely normal, almost quaint, honestly. You could drive right past it and never know. But on a sweltering night in June of 1912, 8 people, Josiah and Sarah Moore, their 4 children, and 2 visiting friends, they were all brutally murdered in their sleep with an axe. And the kicker? No arrests were ever made. The case remains unsolved, still, to this day. For years it's been the hotspot for paranormal investigators. People claim to hear voices, see apparitions, feel these sudden, drastic cold spots, and, they even do overnight stays there. And well, I'd always wanted to do one. It was my ultimate ghost hunting fantasy, I guess. I'd read every single book about it, watched every single documentary. I felt like I knew the house, knew the story, backwards and forwards. I really thought I was prepared for it. Truly. So in the summer of 2019, I finally booked it. 2 nights. Just me. I wanted the full, unadulterated experience, No distractions, no other thrill seekers to dilute the atmosphere. My friends, they thought I was absolutely crazy, of course. My girlfriend at the time, bless her heart, she practically begged me not to go. She said it was, and I quote, tempting fate. But I just laughed it off. Fate? I was like an atheist, a total skeptic, a rationalist. I believed in facts, not phantoms. I figured worst case, I'd get a good story out of it to tell at parties. Best case, maybe I'd hear a creak in the night and, tell myself it was a ghost for the bragging rights. That was the extent of my thinking, honestly. The drive out there was long. The kind of drive where the towns just get smaller and further apart, and the cornfields stretch to the horizon in every direction. Just endless green. When I finally pulled up to the house, it was just past dusk. The sky was still this bruised purple, and the setting sun cast long, really eerie shadows. It looked exactly like the pictures, maybe even more stoic, more silently imposing, like it had seen things, held so many dark secrets, and was just patiently waiting for its next visitor, I remember this shiver, not of fear, not yet, but of anticipation, just running down my spine. This was it. My big adventure. The caretaker met me, this gruff, quiet man who gave me the keys and a super quick rundown of the rules. Don't break anything, respect the property, don't provoke anything. He seemed tired, really tired. Like he'd seen too many wide-eyed enthusiasts come and go and he was just over it. As he left, the silence descended. And I mean descended. It was this thick, heavy silence, the kind that just presses in on your ears. No traffic noise, no distant sirens. Just the low hum of the old refrigerator in the kitchen and the almost imperceptible ticking of an unseen clock somewhere. It was profound. I started by doing what any sensible person would do, I guess. I explored. The house was small, a very modest family home. The parlor, the dining room, the kitchen downstairs. Upstairs, 4 bedrooms. The master bedroom, where Josiah and Sarah were found. The children's room, where the 4 more children slept. And the guest room, where the 2 visiting girls, Lena and Ina Stillinger, met their horrific end. Every single room felt cold. Not temperature cold, though it was surprisingly cool for a summer night. But an emotional coldness, a residue of unspeakable tragedy. You could almost feel it in the air. I set up my gear, a couple of audio recorders, a cheap night vision camera I'd bought online, and my phone. I wanted to capture anything, everything. My first night, I decided to sleep in the parlor downstairs, figuring I'd ease myself into it, not jump straight into the deepest end. I laid out my sleeping bag, turned off all the lights, and just waited in the dark. It started subtly, honestly. Really, really subtly. Around midnight, I heard it. A faint scratching sound coming from the walls near the fireplace. It wasn't a mouse, not really. It was too rhythmic, too distinct, like fingernails, tiny and delicate, just scraping against plaster. I sat up, my heart pounding a little faster than it should have been, and just listened in the absolute darkness. It would stop, then start again. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It went on for about 15 minutes, maybe 20, then just stopped, poof, gone. I rationalized it, of course. Old house, settling, maybe some weird acoustic thing. But I couldn't shake the feeling that it was deliberate, like someone was doing it. The next thing was the smell. Around 2 a.m., a distinct cloying scent just drifted through the house. It wasn't floral, definitely not decay. It was metallic, like old pennies or, fresh blood. It was faint at first, then grew stronger, clinging to the air, just filling my nostrils. It made the hairs on my arms stand straight up. I got up, walked around the parlor, sniffed the air like a weirdo. It seemed to be coming from the direction of the staircase, the path to the bedrooms upstairs. I tried to find the source, but it was just everywhere. And then, just like the scratching, it faded away. I told myself it was my imagination, or maybe just the old pipes, something old housey, but the memory of that metallic tang it still makes my stomach turn, honestly. And then, just before dawn, as the first hint of gray light touched the windows, I heard it. A child's giggle. Faint, almost a whisper, but undeniably a child's giggle. It seemed to come from directly above me, from the children's bedroom. It was so quick, so fleeting. I almost convinced myself I dreamt it, that it was just a remnant of a dream, But the hairs on my neck were still standing up, and I felt a sudden, profound chill that wasn't from the summer night air. It was a cold that felt like it came from inside me. I didn't sleep much after that. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house breathe. Or maybe it was me just trying to breathe. The next day, my resolve really started to crumble. All those subtle things from the night before, they had just gnawed at me. I kept replaying them in my mind over and over, trying to find a logical explanation for each one. But the more I thought about them, the less logical they became. And, I decided, against my better judgment, to try sleeping upstairs that night, specifically in the master bedroom. I wanted to confront whatever was there, or at least, prove to myself it was all just in my head, that I was just freaking myself out. I set up my sleeping bag in the master bedroom. The air in that room felt different, even heavier than the parlor. Colder, despite the summer heat outside. I put my audio recorder on the bedside table and aimed my cheap night vision camera at the doorway. I felt this growing knot of dread tightening in my stomach, but I tried to push it down. I kept telling myself I'm still in control. I have to be. Around 11 p.m., I heard the footsteps. Slow, deliberate steps, pacing back and forth in the room directly across the hall. The children's room. Creak, creak, creak. It wasn't the house settling. It was too regular, too intentional, too human. I held my breath, listening, my heart hammering against my ribs so hard I felt like it would burst. I actually picked up my phone, about to turn on the flashlight and investigate, but something held me back. A primal fear, this unexplainable warning screaming in my mind. Don't look. Seriously, don't look. Then, the sound of something small and hard rolling on the floor in the children's room. Like a marble or a wooden toy. Roll, roll, roll. It would stop, then start again, almost as if someone was playing with it, and then a distinct thump as if it had hit something solid. My mind immediately went to the pictures I'd seen of the house. Of the original layout, there was a chest of drawers right where the sound seemed to be coming from. Was something being pushed? Rolled off? I couldn't believe it. I was just frozen, utterly paralyzed, just listening to the unfolding, inexplicable sounds in the dark. The moaning started an hour later, and oh God, the moaning. It was low, guttural, and undeniably human. It sounded like it was coming from right outside the bedroom door. A deep, sorrowful sound, filled with unspeakable pain. Moan. It went on for what felt like an eternity, ebbing and flowing, sometimes soft, sometimes rising in intensity like a wave. I pulled the sleeping bag over my head, trembling, trying to block it out, but it penetrated everything. It felt like it was inside my head, echoing in my skull. This wasn't a draft. This wasn't the house settling. This was suffering, real tangible suffering. Then the whispers. Oh, the whispers. Rapid, low, unintelligible murmurs, as if a whole crowd of people were talking, frantic and hushed, just outside the door, right on the other side of the wood. And as they started, the temperature in the room plummeted. I mean, it dropped. I could literally see my breath. It was an unnatural cold, a bone-deep chill that had nothing, absolutely nothing, to do with the outside air. It felt like something was draining the warmth, the very life, from the room. I could feel the hairs on my arms and legs standing on end, my skin prickling with goosebumps. My teeth started chattering uncontrollably. I knew with a certainty that chilled me to my core that I was not alone in that room. Not anymore. The whispers grew louder, more frantic, and I started to hear snippets, fragments of words, though I couldn't quite make them out. They were distorted, stretched, like voices played backward or, through water. But the tone was desperate, terrified. I squeezed my eyes shut, pressing my hands over my ears, desperate to block it out, to make it stop. But it was no use. I just wanted to disappear. I wanted to vanish. And then it happened. The sound that will haunt me until the day I die. A sudden ear-splitting crash, the sound of glass shattering, violently, as if a window had just exploded right in front of me. I instinctively screamed, a raw, terrified sound ripped from my throat, a sound I barely recognized as my own, and immediately after, a child's scream. Not a playful giggle, not a faint whisper. This was a scream of pure, unadulterated terror, a child in agony, a sound that reverberated through the very core of my being, vibrating in my teeth. The static on my audio recorder, which had been a low hum, suddenly surged, becoming a deafening roar, a wall of pure noise. My night vision camera flickered wildly, the green image warping and distorting like a broken TV screen. And in that flickering, that chaos, I saw it. Just for a fraction of a second, in the doorway, a shadow. Not a human shadow, not a normal shadow. It was tall, impossibly thin, and it seemed to ripple, to shift like smoke, like it wasn't quite solid. And then 2 pinpricks of glowing red light, like eyes, just burned in the center of that darkness, staring at me. Then a sickening thud, a sound so visceral, so chilling it stole the air from my lungs. It sounded exactly like an axe hitting wood, not just once but repeatedly. Thud, 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 thud. Each strike echoed through the horrifying silence that followed, each one landing directly in my chest, crushing me. And with each thud, the child's scream intensified, became more desperate, more choked, until it was just a series of agonizing gasps. It sounded like it was happening right there, right in front of me in that very room. I could almost feel it. I couldn't breathe. My body was shaking uncontrollably, every single nerve ending screaming in pure panic. I felt a pressure building in my head, a dizzying nausea that made the room spin. I tried to move, to get up, to run, to just scramble out of there, but my limbs wouldn't respond. It was like I was paralyzed, trapped in a living nightmare from which there was absolutely no escape. My eyes were squeezed shut, but I could still see the darkness, the red pinpricks, the axe falling. The air grew even colder, so cold it burned my lungs with every ragged breath. And then, a new sound. A wet, tearing sound, followed by a choking gasp, closer now. The child's scream suddenly cut off abruptly, terrifyingly, replaced by a low, satisfied growl that seemed to vibrate through the floorboards, through my very bones. A sound of triumph. I squeezed my eyes shut even tighter, pressing my hands over my ears with all my might, desperate to block it out. But it was no use. The sounds, the cold, the feeling of utter, overwhelming malice. It was all consuming. It felt like something was clawing at my mind, trying to pull me under into the same abyss of terror that had claimed those 8 souls. I felt a searing pain behind my eyes, as if my brain was trying to burst from my skull. I felt violated, like my very essence was being invaded, twisted, corrupted. I don't know how long it lasted. Seconds? Minutes? It felt like an eternity, like time had just ceased to exist. I remember a final crushing wave of cold, a profound sense of despair washing over me, and then darkness. Utter, complete darkness. I must have passed out, or my mind just shut down. I woke up the next morning, curled in a fetal position in my sleeping bag, shivering violently despite the rising sun streaming through the windows. The room was empty. The air was still. The static on my recorder was gone. My night vision camera was off. It was as if nothing had happened, but everything had happened. It had all been so real. My body ached, every muscle sore and strained. My throat was raw from screaming, though I didn't even remember doing it. My head throbbed with a dull, persistent ache that wouldn't go away. And there was this profound emptiness inside me, this hollowness where my casual curiosity used to be. It was just gone, replaced by something else. I packed my things in a daze. I didn't even bother checking the recordings or the camera footage. I just wanted to get out of that house, out of that town, out of that sickening, oppressive silence. I practically ran to my car, my heart still pounding with a phantom fear, a lingering echo of the night's horrors. It felt like I was fleeing a war zone. The drive home was a blur. I barely remember it. I just remember the overwhelming urge to put as much distance as possible between myself and that house. When I finally got back to my apartment, I literally just collapsed. I didn't sleep for days, maybe even a week. Every shadow seemed to twist into something menacing. Every creak of the floorboards sent jolts of pure, raw fear through me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed me, that a part of that house, a piece of that horror had just latched onto me and come along for the ride. I tried to tell my friends, my girlfriend, what happened, but how do you explain something so utterly unbelievable? So fundamentally terrifying, you know? They listened, polite but skeptical. They told me I'd probably just scared myself or had a vivid nightmare. I even went to a therapist. She suggested stress, sleep deprivation, and overactive imagination. But they weren't there. They didn't feel the cold. They didn't hear the screams. They didn't see those eyes. And they certainly didn't feel that invasion. I quit my job. I couldn't focus, couldn't concentrate. The mundane reality of desk work felt trivial, meaningless. Like, what was the point? My relationship eventually ended. She couldn't understand the change in me, the constant fear in my eyes, the way I flinched at sudden noises, how I'd just stare off into space for hours. I became a recluse, spending my days staring blankly at walls, and my nights battling the images and sounds that played on a horrifying loop in my mind. I never looked at the recordings. I couldn't bring myself to. They're still in a box hidden away in my closet, gathering dust. Sometimes I think about destroying them, burning them. But a part of me, a morbid, terrified part, wonders what secrets they still hold, what horrifying truths they might reveal. And that thought, it just stops me every time. It's been years now. I've moved. Changed my number. Tried to start fresh, build a new life, you know? But the house is always there in the back of my mind. And those sounds. The scratching, the metallic smell, the footsteps, the moans, the whispers. They never truly left. They just moved in, sometimes late at night. When the house is quiet and the wind howls just right outside my new window, I still hear them. Not with my ears, not exactly, but in that deep dark part of my mind, the part that remembers things it desperately wishes it could forget. I can still hear the whispers, the children, and sometimes when I'm alone in the dark, I swear I can still feel the profound, chilling cold of that master bedroom pressing in on me, and I wonder if they didn't just pass through me, but if a part of them, a piece of their endless terror, found a permanent home in me. My story is a tale of unexplained events shaping a person entirely. It was a profound experience where I sought excitement, but left with my being changed. The unexplained memories, chills, and cold feelings are a part of me now, even if they may never leave. Do you wonder what lingers in haunted places? If tragedy follows you? My chilling experience at the Villisca Axe Murder House sent shivers down your spine. If you do too, hit that like button. Sharing these real horror stories helps bring them to more people genuinely intrigued by unexplained happenings. I'm always seeking encounters like ours, haunted locations, or something inexplicable that stayed with me. Comment below and share your own experiences. I appreciate knowing I'm not alone in these odd encounters. If you want to hear more terrifying stories, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Do you have other tales of real terror? Leave a comment here. Stay safe out there.